Welcome to another edition of Cody's Movie Cave. Today we're kind of stepping back, way back, to I believe it was the late to mid 60s range. For this one, we're going to be going back to Clint Eastwood's A Fistfull of Dollars. One of my favorite westerns, probably period. As you see, got the man in the back there. Yeah, it's a great western. So yeah, we'll kind of dive into it. A lot of younger viewers will be like, "What? It's a western. It's not no good. It's old." But let me tell you, young pups, this movie defined the anti-hero. Right? Clint Eastwood's one of the toughest SOBs around. So yeah, the story is you got this mysterious gunslinger, right? Comes in riding into this town on a mule, no less. Wearing a poncho, it's kind of like the western's version of a cape. Rides into town, and you got these two factions of warlords, basically. And you got the Baxters on one side of town, and you got these oh crap, I forget their name, but they're the Mexican bad guys anyway over there. Both bad, in their own right. But they're both vying to run the town, and so you got this gun for hire Western mercenary that rides in on his mule and starts basically trying to play both sides of the two gangs here, so he can make a little cheddar, because that's what he's about. So yeah, this was Clint Eastwood's probably breakout first big screen performance. I think he's the only English-speaking cast member of this movie. It was directed by Sergio Leone, who kind of redefined the Western genre with what's known now as the spaghetti Western, and that's because it wasn't filmed in America. It was filmed on location in either Italy or somewhere in the European continent. But a little bit of trivia here is that Clint Eastwood was still working on Rawhide at the time, which was his TV series, and so he couldn't make an American film while on break from filming Rawhide due to contract obligations, but it didn't state that he couldn't go out of country to Europe to film a movie. So that's kind of how this whole thing started. And interestingly enough, when it comes to costumes, the hat he wore, the boots, the vest, and I believe there was something else, but I can't remember offhand. But those things that he wore in this movie actually came from Rawhide because the budget was so small. They had to kind of, improvise here and there. Of course, they found the poncho actually somewhere over there on location and said, why not throw it on him? If it works, it works. If it don't, it don't. It worked. It worked. It was his trademark, the poncho. But yeah, Clint Eastwood in this one gets to kind of play the anti-hero, and it's the first of its kind because up until this point, we were used to the Gary Coopers, the John Waynes, who played the white hat, straight-laced, good guy, plain and simple. There was no gray areas that they worked in. But Clint Eastwood kind of said, him and Sergio Leone came up with this character, and he's kind of morally gray. I mean, he's not fully bad, but he's not a good straight-laced good guy either. He works for the highest bidder. He's out for himself, but at the same time, he finds himself doing some good deeds in the process. He helps the family out from under the rule of one of these gangs. So that was a heroic move on his part. And at the end, he wipes out these guys wholesale and leaves the town in better shape than he found it, sort of. The action was for its time was cutting edge. It was the new style, so to speak. He's fast. Homeboy back here is fast with a gun. One of the first scenes when he rides into town, on this mule, no less. Some of the Baxter guns for hire kind of makes fun of him, starts shooting at him, and so his mule takes off, and he really don't care. You get that his character really don't care about what they're saying because he knows he's the crap, he's legit. But he kind of has to prove that he's good with a gun to kind of get the job. So he moseys on down there, and he basically says something kind of to the effect of, "I don't think it's funny you laughing. You see, my mule gets the idea that you're laughing at him." And basically, somewhere thereabouts. And he says to these guys, "If you apologize like I know you're going to, I might convince him that you didn't mean it." Of course, they get, ticked off and kind of PO'd with all this, and they're like, "Who's this guy think he is?" And in a fraction of a second, he mows them down with his 6 gun, right? Boom, 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 boom. And what's cool is, movies up to this point, John Wayne, like I said, Gary Cooper, all those, they were more like, just plain old shootouts, and you really didn't get any kind of different view from the gun action, from the gunslinging action. With this one, Sergio Leone brings the camera down to Clint's hip and shows it from the gun's point of view, and it shows just how fast he's fanning the hammer on the revolver. And I mean, he's quick. He is fast. He slings that poncho up over his shoulder and he's ready to go. But yeah, it's a good movie. The iconic squint that Clint sort of come up with and sort of carried throughout the rest of his career, funny enough, was not on purpose. It was due to the bright sun being in his eyes for most of the scenes, and some of the lighting lamps that they used on location kind of got in his eyes, so he had more or less of this kind of squint, so to speak. So yeah, as far as westerns go, like I said, this is probably one of my favorites. When you think of Clint, his poncho, Man with No Name, most people automatically go straight to the good and the bad and the ugly, but for me, the definitive Clint western was his introduction to this character, which was A Fistfull of Dollars. And of course, it spanned the sequel, for a few dollars more, and then came the conclusion of his whole tenure as the Man with No Name, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And great movies, both of those. Good movies. I enjoyed them. But for the most part, Fistfull of Dollars is his definitive bad-ended role. I think it's like an hour and 49 minutes, so it's not on the long side like The Good and the Bad and the Ugly was. It was like 3 hours, so it's a shorter movie. I forget what it's rated. I think it's rated R, believe it or not, for the time. Not a lot of language, but there is a good bit of violence. That being said, the violence itself is not very graphic. It was in the 60s, so they couldn't really get away with a whole lot. But good movie. You can catch it on TV most of the time, like AMC or one of those, or go out and get you a hard copy. I got a hard copy. I got it on digital too. It's that good. So yeah, if you're a younger viewer and you hadn't seen it, Fistfull of Dollars, check it out, because just from a comic book fan, so to speak, his character has inspired so many great sci-fi and comic book performances. For instance, The Mandalorian draws heavy inspiration on Clint Eastwood's performance in this movie. Sort of the lone gunslinger. Don't have to say much because he's that good vibe. The gunfighter for hire type situation. And like I said, it's been kind of inspiration for a lot of cool stuff. Check it out, for real. I wouldn't lead you astray. It's an old movie, I get it. You're hesitant, but the action's good. The score is freaking awesome. Got that whole little kind of deal going on. But it's a good movie. Check it out. You'll be going buying yourself a poncho and a hat at the end of it. I tell you, you will. It's a good one. So, like I always say, this is my humble opinion. And you know what I say about opinions? They're like butts. Everybody's got one. Some of them stink.